So hey everyone, welcome to a year living with a Venge Vias. I guess just before we kick off, I should probably say that the intention originally was to kind of put a long-term review together, but having revisited my kind of 6-month review, to be honest, not an awful lot's changed, so that seems like a bit of a waste of time. Instead, what I'm going to do is touch on a few topics as a result of questions that have come up on the back of that video, and also some actually around the kind of initial first impressions video that I put together. So you can find those pretty easy on the channel, so go and check them out in terms of looking at spec and you know, I guess those initial first observations. Quick recap, this is actually the second tier Venge Vias disc, so it's not the S-Works model. There are a couple of things that I've changed on it, so chain set being one. It comes with specialised S-Works carbon crankset, but it's round rings, and for people who have been watching the channel for a little while, you know that I'm not a massive fan of them. So in terms of, I guess, observations and, you know, criticisms, things that I like, one thing that I really do like about this bike, and for kind of anybody who knows me in real life, not in cyberspace, you'll know that I'm not somebody who likes a massive amount of attention. But actually one of the things that I do like about this bike is it's a genuine head turner. Doesn't matter whether you're, you know, going out just kind of solo and you're passing other riders, you always see them turning their head. And I think that's probably become more of a thing recently now that the tarmac's actually changed as well. I think people are kind of wondering from a distance at a glance whether or not that's actually or whether or not it is one of the new tarmacs, but definitely not Venge Vias. So that's one thing that I do like about it. Another thing is that it's pretty effortless to ride. I've not suffered any of the kind of initial complaints or criticisms that the sort of big magazines, big websites actually came up with. So I've never suffered with numbness. I've done a couple of back-to-back days on this bike, circa sort of 90 miles and then 65, I think, the following day. I've done a couple of those, both organised and kind of also off my own back as well. Never suffered, as I say, numbness in the hands, soreness in the saddle area, you know, absolutely nothing. So from that point of view, and I've got to say that's actually a big surprise. Very pleased with the wheels. Recently had them in at the bike shop just to, you know, I guess have a quick check over of them, and they were largely running true. They were out ever so slightly, and if you consider that at the time of recording I've done what, probably 3,500 miles on this bike on UK roads. Pretty damn good actually, pretty impressive. One issue that I have had, and to be fair this could happen to anybody, but one issue I have had is with these tyres. So these are the S-Works Tarmac Turbo tyre. I did pick up a gouge in one of them. Looks like could have been glass, so as I say, it could have happened to anybody, but they are a pretty supple tyre, so it's just something to be mindful of, again, especially if you're riding in the UK, because our roads aren't in the best condition. So when that happened, swapped those tyres out, upgraded to some 26 mils, and on those nice wide rims. Yeah, very impressed, very grippy, bit of added comfort in there, so no complaints over that either. Saddle, I think as I mentioned before, I've actually done a review on that saddle separately, changed my life. Went out and bought another one to actually go on my winter bike, so I just found it so comfortable. One criticism or issue that I do see is actually around the front end here. So if you're somebody who needs to mount lights or mount action cameras, it's a bit of a challenge. It can be overcome, but it's a bit of a challenge to see that actually there's not much of your sort of typical round section there on the bar to get things like lights on, or even action cameras. But again, there's another video on the channel where I actually show how I mount action cameras, and actually at the same time, I don't go into the detail, but it's also the same bracket that I use for mounting a front light as well. The stem cap bolt looks a little bit soft, and I think that might present some issues. It's one of those things really, you're cleaning and water's going to sit in the top of it. It's so it hasn't rusted, but it does feel a little bit soft, so you need to be extra careful if you're planning on doing any kind of home maintenance on it. But other than that, everything's absolutely spot on. There's not a sign of surface rust on any of the bolt heads. Nothing's kind of rounded. I've pretty much stripped this bike, not completely all in one go, but you know, just for maintenance and such like. So I've had the crank out a few times, re-greased the bottom bracket, cleaned the shell out. Generally stays pretty tight, and you know what, really at this kind of price point you'd expect kind of build quality to be pretty spot on, and there's no complaints over that either. So it's a very stiff bike. It's by no means a climbing bike, but you know, I've done quite a few hilly courses. You know, don't get me wrong, I've not been riding any Alps or anything like that, but I've not had any issues with the terrain and kind of the routes that I've been riding, you know, pretty much throughout the year. So there's no real complaints with that. I'm pretty sure a tarmac, you know, for the same effort, is going to go up quicker, or any other climbing bike for that matter. You know, the extra weight that you get with this bike, you almost certainly do feel it. I don't ride any kind of lightweight climbing bike, so I've nothing really to you know, kind of directly compare against. But as I said, no real complaints. So generally the maintenance of the bike's pretty simple, certainly from a cleaning point of view. Degreasing the chain, you know, no difference there, nothing to kind of be mindful of. Chain set exactly as you'd expect, nice and simple. That integrated front end does present some challenges, so you know, it's not necessarily that simple. It's not a job that I'll certainly tackle when it comes to stripping down, replacing bearings or greasing bearings. That will be something where I take the bike into the bike shop. So yeah, unless you're somebody who's, you know, pretty au fait and technically minded, and I guess also got the right tools, then that's something that you need to consider. That's going to be a job for the bike shop, so whatever they're going to charge you. So I guess that just leaves one question, and that is, would I buy another? You can probably guess, yeah, the answer is yes. Yes, it's expensive, but actually when I compare it against the bike that this replaced, it's not actually all that bad. The bike this replaced was probably about £800–1,000 less, you know, everything all in, power meter included. But if I just compare kind of the first year of ownership of the last bike to this has given me zero headaches, not one. The last bike, I had a couple of issues with the Di2, with the battery, a couple of issues with the free hub, wheels not always running true. So actually for the extra kind of £800,000, then yeah, I would buy another one of these without question. So go check out my initial thoughts and also long-term review videos. There will be pop-ups actually throughout the video for kind of everything Venge Vias that I've put together in the last 12 months. In the meantime, that just leaves me to say, any comments or questions, drop them in the section below. Please pop me a thumbs up on here and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thanks for watching.